Hey guys, let's talk about the film Arrival a little bit. You already watched the Nerd Writer video, I'm hoping, about how the structure mimics the topics that they are talking about in that film in the way that it creates a kind of circularity, right? So you start the film thinking that it is a flashback, and yet the way that it messes with time through the movie and the way that we get sort of more information as we go along causes us then to think back to that scene at the beginning with her daughter and recognize that this thing is actually in the future, but that even using those terms, future and past, is not accurate to the way that Louise thinks anymore, right? It's such a complicated movie, actually. Because of the way that it's using visual language to get this idea across. And one thing I want to talk about here is what that would mean for the relationship between language and thought. That is one of our main questions, right, that we are thinking about with this unit, is how does language sort of cause our thoughts to become a certain way, and how do our thoughts influence the way that we express ourselves in language? This film is talking about how language is built on opposites, dichotomies. So you have off, and therefore you know that you have a word that means on, or you have a word that means black, and so you know that you have a word that means white, the opposite. And lots of times we start to understand things as opposites, even when maybe they aren't opposites, right? So like man, and the opposite of man is woman. Now think about that for a second. Is that actually true? Don't we have a lot more commonalities than we do opposites, right? And yet we start to think of things as kind of in opposition to each other. And this has the potential to create a kind of competition, but it also has this idea of identifying something means that you are also identifying what it is not. So that if you identify me as woman, then you know that I am not man, right? And with Louise, this becomes extremely interesting to me and quite moving when you think about her as a mother, because she is both in this film. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. It's so beautiful. She is both mother and not mother at the same time, though, right? So she's built, I mean, the movie builds this up as an opposite at first. It's like you are a mother, and then maybe you have a child that dies, and now what do you say that you are? Are you a not mother now? You once were. So what kind? How do you define yourself now? And any of you guys who have maybe experienced death in that way know the difficulties there. You know, I was a sister. Now am I a not sister anymore? If somebody asks me how many siblings I have, do I include the person who is not person anymore? And it gets into like some real tricky areas of grief that we don't quite know how to deal with, right? Now, that's assuming, though, that we are living in this kind of linear fashion. But when this movie has Louise learn the circularity of the alien language, it's like it's saying that all these things exist at once for Louise. She is pre-mother, mother, and post-mother all at once. So it's like she's not thinking about it in terms of like a timeline. It just exists for her. And what's great about the movie too is that this is a process of learning, and so it seems appropriate to me that we can use a visual language that is also sequential, that we have to watch in order to describe this idea, because Louise gets to think about her traditional human way of experiencing language and also the alien way, because she is bilingual. So this gets us into kind of synthesizing our sources now. We've got Arrival, we have Noam Chomsky, George Orwell, Gloria Anzaldúa. We also have Charles Krauthammer and Gretchen McCulloch, but I want to focus on those other four first. So you think about how Arrival relates to Noam Chomsky. Chomsky is talking about how the brain is built in a certain way in order to activate language easily, right? So like we are already built with the a priori categories that help us understand language. And this movie imagines that those categories can be shifted and shaped. That the brain is malleable, and I know it's sci-fi, but this is just a thought experiment, right? The brain is malleable, and if you can adapt it to an entire new language, then you adapt an entire new perception of the world. Now that goes along with Orwell really well, because even though this movie is talking about the possibilities of language and how this might create more knowledge rather than less. Orwell is also talking about the way that language is going to cause the mind to adapt to it. Not that our mind creates, that our mind adapts to the world and then we create new language, although I don't think he would say that didn't happen. But he's talking about the danger of if language changes, what that is going to do with our minds. And in this film, in Arrival, language changes for Louise, and that then changes her mind. And then as far as Anzaldúa goes, she is bilingual now. She speaks alien, I forgot their names, and she speaks human, right? And there's this strange idea that she might be flitting between the two, that she can kind of like turn on the alien and then turn it off, but that she has the knowledge of alien language and the knowledge of human language at the same time, so she can communicate in both groups. And I think this movie beautifully talks about how that is not then a dual personality. Like Anzaldúa says, this is not like, this is me as an alien, this is me as a human. Louise has become an alien-human hybrid. The alien thing that she contains now is language, and she has found a way to incorporate both styles of language into her understanding of the world, which creates a more adaptable, stronger person, if we are going with what Anzaldúa says. Okay, so this is what I want you to try doing in the discussion. I want you to think of some of the implications of the ideas in Arrival and then apply them to some of the ideas that we've been talking about with language and our other sources.